Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Shri Radha Madhava ki, Shri Nitai Gaura Hari ki, Shri Prabhupada ki, Shri Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Hare Krishna, everyone. So thank you all for this opportunity this morning. We're discussing Krishna book, and this is chapter 31. Om Jnanatimidandasya Gnanginashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavari Paschati Deshadarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakapatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha. So we're discussing chapter 31 of Krishna book. This wonderful literature has been written by Srila Prabhupada, and it's based on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this chapter is called Songs by the Gopis. And I pray for all your blessings to do justice to this class so that we can have better understanding and appreciation for the Lord's pastimes, so that we can serve Him and love Him better. So these beautiful prayers in this chapter have been sung by the Gopis after Krishna disappeared from their vision. We read in the previous chapter of how they were experiencing a very deep ecstasy after he left them. And they expressed it initially by describing and also enacting his wonderful pastimes. It was almost like they were him, and this is the extraordinary ecstasy that one can experience on the topmost level of Godhead. This is the real oneness, where you can actually feel the emotions of the Lord as if you are the Lord, although, of course, the devotee never wants to be one with the Lord, because they get a much greater happiness from feeling those emotions, like the gopis were feeling, much more than even God would feel. So much so that God wants to feel those emotions also. And that's the true understanding of what is really coveted. Not the powers of God, but actually what it feels like to love God in the highest ecstasy. Because when He wants to feel that, right, He, for all His opulence and all His powers, He can't feel that. Then He has to take the mood of His own devotee. It's something that's not even within His ability. So Krishna's devotees don't aspire to become Him. They don't aspire to become God. They aspire to taste this highest love for Him. And also, there's a caveat to that. They want to experience that love because it pleases Him, not for themselves. So there's a condition even for that love. So the gopis were experiencing this kind of ecstasy, the ecstasy of separation, which we'll explain in a little bit, why that is actually even greater than meeting with Him. So this ecstasy of the gopis is being heightened because they have just been in Krishna's company. They actually had Him finally after. But what we're seeing, or we will see in the next few chapters, is Krishna wasn't far away from them. He was very close actually. And so it's not the same kind of ecstasy. Krishna couldn't actually be far from them. This is their great love. But still, He had disappeared from their vision for a very important reason. And it was because they were feeling proud of being in His company. And so He had to, we could say, put some distance between them, right, to teach them this very important lesson on our behalf. But if we look at it closely, it's the pride that actually puts the distance between God and us. That's the real distance. So we can be in His company like the gopis were in His company. We can be in a close situation with Him. We can imagine those kind of situations, like maybe when we're serving Him in His deity form directly. But if we're feeling that pride, the distance between Him and us could be from here to the moon. And it's simply because Krishna is so good, so much on that level of transcendental goodness, that He cannot be amongst material qualities. It's impossible. It's almost like the poles of a magnet. It repels. So we have to be so careful to guard against these kind of qualities, putting a distance between the Lord and us. So that's actually quite an irony, because when we're in the presence of God, then we feel that pride. It's a natural instinct, even in the presence of His great devotees, in the presence of those who inspire us. And because of that, that natural reaction, we don't always notice it. And it's because we're so much in the false ego still. It's an unfortunate reality, but until we're actually on the Brahma Bhuta platform, until we're on that elevated level, we'll still be feeling the instincts of the false ego. And because they're occurring in a spiritual setting, we may mistake it for spiritual emotions, and that's why we miss it. So we have to be very careful to guard against that, because it has so much consequences for our spiritual life. Just like what happened here with the gopis. So again, they're illustrating that point for all of us to learn from. Right? How easy it is to lose Krishna because we let these things creep up upon us, and it grows within us and we don't even realize it's there. So we may ask, well, they have the highest love for Krishna, so how is this happening? How are they letting this affect them? And then, of course, we remember that even Arjuna got bewildered on our behalf. On our behalf. So the pure devotees, they do this. They illustrate these things for us to learn from. And Srila Prabhupada said many times that the mother-in-law teaches the daughter-in-law by teaching the daughter. That way the message comes across nicely. So we need to learn from them and not make the same mistakes. So this ecstasy also was heightened by that separation. So we could understand that there was also a deeper meaning to what was happening, because again they wanted to be reunited with Krishna so much now after having his association, that they were enacting his pastimes everywhere as if he was everywhere. So His Holiness Indradyumna Swami Maharaj, he often quotes, and I'll just paraphrase, that Radha and Krishna, they prefer the separation for that reason. Because when they're together, there's only one Radha or only one Krishna for them. But when they're separated, their beloved is everywhere. There's many Radhas and many Krishnas, because all they can think about is the object of their love. So it means that we sometimes may take the presence of someone for granted, right, when they're in front of us, and we don't think about how important it is that they're around until they're not around. Right? That's our little, our understanding on the material platform of this. Right? So on the transcendental platform, that's heightened even more. But when that person is not around, Radha and Krishna, they just can't stop thinking of their beloved. Right? Radha sees Krishna everywhere. Krishna sees Radha everywhere. So Krishna, there's more than one. When he's with Radha, there's just one Radha. But when he's not with her, there's millions of Radhas. Right? So this is how they're experiencing this love. And therefore they prefer this separation. This is what happens in the spiritual world. So we may find that very strange, because we're still on that false ego like we were speaking about. When you're still on that false ego, you want everything for yourself. So you want that person to be present for yourself. Even if you're not really happy with them for whatever reason, you just want them there. Right? It just, some way, it just makes you feel better. That's what happens in the false ego. But when one is on the level of, when one is on this transcendental level, where one has surpassed that false ego, then one actually has no selfish desires to actually have that person for themselves. That love is conditional on that person being with me. Even if the person is so far away, and even if they may never see that person again, because that's what happened when Krishna left Vrindavan. There was no guarantee that they ever would see Krishna again. The love doesn't get less, it intensifies more. They would rather suffer without him than not loving him. So this is way beyond our understanding, right? Because again, on the platform of the false ego, all we can do is want things for ourselves and want people for ourselves. When on the level of real, true love, you only want what makes that person happy. And if it makes them happy to be away, or for some reason, like with Krishna, he had to be away from them, they accept it in that purity of their love. And they don't try and forget him, meet somebody else. It doesn't work like that there. That unconditional love intensifies. It doesn't get less in his absence. They don't try to manipulate the situation to get him back. Don't put pictures up to try and make him jealous. This is not something that we could actually understand. So we take our Acharya's guidance. This is why it's so important for these pastimes in particular that are so esoteric, so beyond what we could ever imagine. We must take our Acharya's words as our guide as to how to understand these pastimes. They endure all kinds of pain just to keep loving Krishna. It's amazing. And this is a true monument to love. This love is what we are going to read about in these words, because this entire song is composed of that love. And it follows after they were expressing Krishna's pastimes. And then finally they went to the banks of the Yamuna and they just started singing to him. Right? And he was, of course, close enough to hear. But the whole song is longing for him and wanting him to come back, because they were not aware of how close he was. So because of how surcharged with love these prayers are, right, these songs are also, this chapter, songs of the gopis, is also called the Gopi Geet. It's revered by our Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas, because everyone who has come in the mood of Lord Chaitanya has actually been able to experience this. Lord Chaitanya, actually Madhavendra Puri, introduced this kind of love in our line, because before that it wasn't there. The dominant way that you could love Krishna was in Dasi Ras. Dasi Ras is a very, very sedate, very respectful kind of expression of love. And then beyond that, we have the rasas of friendship and of parenthood and of conjugal love. And this is all thanks to Madhavendra Puri and Ishwara Puri and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the gopis, and the Goswamis, they put all of that into writing. This is why we have this understanding, because there is actually no other literatures that exist to tell us about this, to help us to understand it. So in the month of Kartik in particular, every evening, these wonderful songs are sung. Right? And of course we know this Rasa dance took place in that month in particular. And the meanings are so deep and powerful. So we're just going to pray to our Acharya so that we can try and understand even a little bit of it today. So we'll start reading. One gopi said, "My dear Krishna, ever since you took your birth in this land of Rajabhumi, everything appears to be glorious. The land of Vrindavan has become glorious, and it is as if the goddess of fortune is personally always existing here. But it is only we who are unhappy, because we are searching for you, but cannot see you with our greatest effort. Our life is completely dependent upon you, therefore we request that you again come to us." So the Sanskrit of this verse is very beautiful. It's Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 31, Text 1. Gopya uchuhu jayati te dikhang janmana vraja shriyata indira shashvadatrahi daita drishyatang bhikshutavakas vaidrita savas twang vichinvate. Shri Radha Radhanath ki, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Shri Giraj Govardhan Hari ki, Shri Prabhupada ki. So it's like Krishna answered our prayers and he gave us his vision after one verse. Okay. So this verse is spoken in plural. Okay. Gopya uchuhu. Uchuhu is a plural form of uvacha, which means the uvacha means this personality said. So like in Bhagavad Gita, Sri Bhagavan uvacha, and one person is speaking. But here it's Gopya Uchuhu, meaning that all the gopis are speaking. But Srila Jiva Goswami actually, this is just for our interest, but Srila Jiva Goswami explains that actually it's one gopi speaking each verse or verses. And because of their mood, the way they speak the verse, what they're saying in the verse, obviously because of his exalted position, he can understand which gopi is speaking. But even though the messages may be conveyed in different ways, the underlying theme is Krishna, please come back. So because that feeling is shared among all the gopis, it is as if they are all speaking through the gopi who is speaking in that particular verse. Therefore, it is taken that they're all speaking, even though it is one gopi for each verse, more or less. They're all sharing in this this deep and intense desire for Krishna to come back. So Srila Jiva Goswami explains this in Gopal Champu. So the gopi who's speaking in this verse, or the gopis, are saying that this land of Vrindavan, it is glorious. Right? It's glorious because of you, Krishna, because when you reside in any place, all good fortune follows. Right? And so the goddess of fortune, your consort, she's also living here. Right? She's your wife, so she goes wherever you go. Now, we've discussed many times how she's not in the mood of Vrindavan, this kind of love, right? She's more in the mood of Vaikuntha, love that is rooted in reverence. So how is it that she's actually able to be in Vrindavan? So she can actually reside in Vrindavan. She just can't enter the pastimes of Vrindavan. So that's the difference, because her mood does not suit the mood of the pastimes, right, which are completely devoid of opulence. So it's also a lesson to us that we can enter Vrindavan, but it doesn't mean that we're actually in Vrindavan. Until we develop that mood, that very exalted mood through practice of devotional service, we're not really in Vrindavan. So Lakshmi Devi's practice to get into Vrindavan is she's performing penance in Bandirvan to this day. That's her way of trying to enter into this mood. So our penance is the activities of devotional service, right? Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. This is how we try to progress towards entering into the real Vrindavan, into the actual pastimes of Vrindavan, because the pastimes are what makes Vrindavan Vrindavan. So so the gopis are feeling this great misfortune. It's almost like we could say a parallel with the goddess of fortune, right, who is there but not there. Can you imagine? Right there in Vrindavan but can't enter into this pastime. In the same way, the gopis are in this Vrindavan, right, where Krishna is, but they can't be with him. And the parallel is they sort of have the same problem. Right? The goddess of fortune is situated in this mood of opulence, and the gopis were in pride, which is a little bit, the emotion is a little bit the same. Again, it's an indication that this is what separates us from Krishna, why we can't actually associate with him. So the other devotees, though, who are not experiencing this pride, they're feeling this glory of Vrindavan because they're in the pastimes with Krishna. But the gopis are separated from him because of it. So this is the lesson for us. So sometimes we may also, if we're in the service of Krishna, because the service mood is actually Vrindavan. This is why Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was told by Advaita Acharya, wherever you are, it's Vrindavan. Because you're always chanting, you're always absorbed in Krishna. So we should always be in that mood of Vrindavan. If we're not there, if we're not feeling that bliss that comes with the service, then it means it requires some introspection, some looking within to see which of these qualities, particularly the pride, but which of the qualities are there that's actually preventing us from experiencing that mood of Vrindavan, experiencing that bliss of devotional service. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he encouraged us to actually look within to see, which of these qualities is obstructing that mood. Right? We're all very much in consciousness of him and his teachings, because his 105th appearance anniversary is coming up this week, very auspicious. And I quote him here, be very careful. Don't criticize devotees or non-devotees. First look at your own condition and try to purify yourself. Is there any lust in you? Is there any kutinati or deceit in you or not? Be worried about that. Don't worry about others. Sri Guru and Lord Sri Krishna are responsible for others. You cannot do anything to help them. Therefore, you have no right to criticize. And at another point he said, when faults in others misguide and delude you, imagine that. The faults of others are misguiding and deluding you, not them. Because the effect it is having on them is not your problem. But their faults are misguiding you. It's misguiding you to worry about them and not look into yourself. When faults in others misguide and delude you, have patience, introspect, and find faults in yourself. Know that others cannot harm you unless you harm yourself. Very interesting and very powerful words, because the troubles of others or the trouble they cause us, it only brings distress to us if we let it affect us. Ostensibly because we have the same qualities within us, probably, right? What they call projection in psychology. And we may not be able to do anything about their behavior, but he advises us to address it within ourselves, because two things happen there. You get less focused on whatever they're doing that's causing you the distress, and you can work on yourself, because once those things are addressed within yourself, then the behavior of others actually doesn't bother you. And so it's much more productive for us to be concerned about what's going on within us, right, and addressing that. So contemplation is a very, it's an age-old technique, right? Mystics of all traditions, especially the traditions of bhakti, they very much engage in contemplation, just like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati tells us to do. Right? It helps us to be more aware of the faults of helps us to be more aware of the false ego and its influence. And the challenge is because we're all acting from the false ego, right? It's the substratum of who we are, basically, because we need it to exist within these bodies. So it's a little interesting. You're trying to search out. You're using the enemy to search him out. So it's not easy. Right? It's not easy to do. You're not always sure what's you, what's the false ego. And it's why we need so much the guidance of spiritually advanced people to help us see the difference. Why we need to read scripture. How many times do we read something? That's me. Those lessons are there. And we also have a secret weapon in our intellect. The intellect is actually described in Srimad Bhagavatam that it's actually directly connected with the Supreme Lord and His consciousness, His supreme consciousness. It means that when that intellect is free of the false ego, that it can actually help us to connect with Him. And that connection, it may sound a little bit mystical, but it's actually practical as well, and it's what Krishna speaks about in Bhagavad Gita. It's what is referred to as buddhi. Right? We've talked about this before. It's different from intelligence. Right? Because material intelligence gets affected by the senses. When the senses want something, the intelligence just goes after that thing. It devises ways for us to get it. And I can challenge you to try and use your intelligence in a different way when your senses want something. And you'll probably fail. Because the intelligence and the mind, of course, they follow whatever the senses want. And again, we've said many times, people are like, what was I thinking? You weren't thinking. You were just following the senses. But there is some voice, and everybody knows that. There is some voice that's still able to go above the intelligence when you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, isn't it? We all experience that. So it's not the same as intelligence, and that's your intellect. That is actually, that you could say is like the voice of the Supreme Lord, right? Because it's an extension of the Supreme Consciousness. It is described as material because an extension of the consciousness into the material world. But when we engage in devotional service, by constant engagement in devotional service, I give the understanding by which they come to me. And that Mahat Tattva, it is actually that buddhi, it becomes transcendental intelligence, that intellect. And then that is what we use to discern things on the spiritual platform. Because decisions are not so easy, they're not black and white. But we can understand the correct and absolute way to understand them through this intellect that's been purified by devotional service. That's the way the Lord will be able to communicate from within, because He is the super soul within. He can communicate with us directly through that. And this is what helps us to overcome all these qualities, because it may seem so impossible. How do we sit down and actually, where do we start? So we start with all the practices of devotional service, like the chanting, because that constant devotional service is what puts us in that, situates us in that buddhi. But that constant devotional service must be attentive devotional service, at least, if it's not pure devotional service. Because if you want Krishna to help you, you got to pay attention to Him. He's here, but if you're not paying attention to Him, His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj says in Sanskrit, it's called pramada. It's a kind of madness. You invite somebody and then you don't pay attention to them. So it's a kind of madness when we don't pay attention to our chanting in particular, but any other kind of devotional service, because we're letting that intelligence run after whatever else our senses want to do or are doing at that time. So we continue with our reading. Another gopi said, "My dear Krishna, you are the life and soul even of the lotus flower that grows on the water of lakes made transparent by the clear rains of autumn. Although the lotus flowers are so beautiful, without your glance they fade away. Similarly, without you we are also dying. Actually, we are not your wives, but are your slaves. You never spend any money for us, yet we are simply attracted by your glance. Now if we die without receiving your glance, you will be responsible for our deaths." So this is interesting, because the gopis are saying that for all this deep and intense love we have for you, we don't get the privileges of that love. The privileges of that love is commitment, reciprocation, right? Srila Prabhupada, it's actually said, you never spend any money for us. He's actually the husband of the goddess of fortune. He has enough money, he has all fortune, but he hasn't given them anything in exchange for this love. So actually, again, it's very deep, because it means that even though they've gotten nothing from Krishna, nothing that what we expect from love, right? Commitment, some tangible exchange, they still love Him. And more than love Him, they're slaves of Him. Ashlishya vyapadaritam pinashtamam adarshanan mamahatam kurotuva yata tata vidadatu lampatomat prananata sus evanapraha. Whatever you do to me, I will still love you, even if you give me nothing in exchange. And that's the real expression of what our relationship with God is. And it's ironic, because in this day and age, religion is thought of as giving you something. When you go through difficulties, the first thing everybody says is, "Oh, but you're so religious. And why is it happening to you?" They have no understanding that this is actually where you get to prove your love for God. When you go through the difficulties, when you say that no matter what's going on, I still love you and I still believe in you. That's what the gopis are saying here, right? It's very, very deep. And then they carry on speaking. "Certainly the killing of women is a great sin, and if you do not come to see us and we die, you will suffer the reactions of sin. So please come and see us. Do not think that one can be killed only by certain weapons. We are being killed by your absence. You should consider how you are responsible for killing women. We're always grateful to you because you've protected us many times." Right? And they go on to list all the times that Krishna protected them, right? From the poison water of the Yamuna, and the Kaliya serpent was there, and from Bakasura, so many things. So this is, of course, in keeping with Krishna's reputation as Bhakta Vatsala. And he's the protector, he's the maintainer, he's the lover of his devotees. And he displays this in Vrindavan and everywhere else in his wonderful pastimes by always protecting his devotees. But the gopis are saying that, Krishna, this is one of your most enduring, wonderful qualities, right, that actually no one actually can compare to. But that quality, that reputation of yours, is going to be destroyed if you kill us by your absence, right? Because you have the opportunity to protect us by appearing, but you're not. And in particular, we are your female devotees, and they're appealing, of course, to Krishna's sense of dharma, right? Because that's what he comes to protect, right? Sarva dharmam paritanaya sadhunam vinashaya shadushkritam dharma samstapanataya sambhavami yuge yuge. He's the protector of dharma. So according to dharma, there's 5 groups of persons in society that must be protected: the women, the children, the elderly men, the elderly, the brahmanas, and the cows. So Krishna is the protector of dharma. This is also something you've come to deliver your devotees, and you're destroying the demons, and that's very good. But as dharma, you're not protecting it because you're putting the lives of women at risk. Dear Krishna, dear friend, we know very well that you are not actually the son of Mother Yashoda or the cowherd man Nanda Maharaj. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the super soul of all living entities. You have, out of your causeless mercy, appeared in this world, requested by Lord Brahma for the protection of the world. It is by your kindness only that you have appeared in the dynasty of Yadu. So now we may think, but the gopis don't know Krishna as God, right? Or do they? So His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu was explaining this very nicely. He said it's like the light of the sun and the light of the stars. Right? When the sunlight is there, you can't see the light of the stars. But it doesn't mean that the light of the stars isn't there. If there's an opportunity that the sunlight disappears, then the light of the stars becomes obvious. So the gopis, the people of Vrindavan, they're aware that Krishna is God. But they don't, it's eclipsed by their love for him, the same way that the light of the stars is eclipsed by the light of the sun. That love is so great that it overpowers this understanding that he's God, and it allows them to act only in that love. But at times when that love, by choice as well, and by other circumstances, even by Krishna's own will sometimes, when the cowherd boys are like, oh, you've done something wonderful, maybe you're God. Right? So sometimes that realization of him being God, it comes through. And like here, like the starlight. And so they're appealing to him that even as the Supreme Lord, you need to come and protect us by appearing. They're saying, don't pretend that you don't know that you're the protector. You're God, we know it, and you have a duty to us. O best in the dynasty of Yadu, if anyone afraid of this materialistic way of life takes shelter at your lotus feet, you never deny him protection. So now they're invoking his own words, right? Where he says, Sarva dharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. He promises to give anyone protection if they take shelter at his lotus feet. They are taking shelter of his lotus feet, and he's not coming to protect them. So they want him to stand by his word as well. Right? So he promised. But then again, they're going to make another point. He sometimes breaks his word. That's why in Bhagavad Gita he tells Arjuna to declare that his devotee never perishes, because his detractors may say, but Krishna, you break your word, but they don't understand the other meaning to that. When he breaks his word, it's for his devotees. It's out of love, like what he did on the battle of Kurukshetra. Right? Bhishma wanted to fight with him. And this is his rasa. So Krishna broke his word not to bear arms when he lifted that chariot wheel and he attacked him. Right? Just to show him that love. We may think, okay, he was protecting Arjuna. That's one layer of it. But the other layer was that he was showing his love to Bhishma by fighting with him, by fulfilling that desire that he wanted. There's so many wonderful angles. Krishna's pastimes just cannot be taken superficially. So then the gopis think, he could break his word. Your movements are sweet and you are independent. You are always the independent Supreme Lord. You can do that. You can decide to break your word as well, because on the absolute platform, whatever you do is always correct. Whether you keep your word or whether you break your word, because you know what is actually right in all circumstances. That is your extraordinary feature. Please therefore come before us and bless us with the lotus in your hand. They're saying that you hold the hand of the goddess of fortune in one hand and you have a lotus flower in the other hand, and you could just leave her, right, with that one hand. She knows it as well. Right? The queens in Dwarka were also aware of that. Because of your independence, because of your renunciation, you don't need anybody or anything. You don't need us either. But that's what makes him so attractive to everybody, right? That he's not with them out of that need. Right? The need is not very nice, right? But that want to be with his devotees because of love. This is what what the gopis, what the queens of Vrindavan, what the goddesses of fortune, what they find so loving in Krishna. Dear Krishna, you are the killer of all the fears of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. You are the supremely powerful hero, and we know that you can kill the unnecessary pride of your devotees. So there they come to this point of pride, right? This is the reason why Krishna disappeared from their vision. So they're aware, right? Their contemplation has also led them to understanding that this is why you left us. You kill and we know that you can kill the unnecessary pride of your devotees as well as the pride of women like us, simply by your beautiful smile. We are simply your maidservants and slaves. Please, therefore, accept us by showing your beautiful lotus-like face. So, in this point about pride, we may ask, but if you're in the company of the most extraordinary, wonderful Krishna, then how can you not feel pride? So, the answer to that is you should feel pride in Krishna for how extraordinary he is, and not pride in yourself for being with Krishna. That's the difference. That's how you address it. So you focus on Krishna and not on yourself. That's what it comes down to. The pride is all about him, but when we make it about us, that we are with him, that's the problem. Krishna is Purushottam. He's the best of all personalities. It's impossible not to feel pride in him, but we don't let it by the false ego extend to us. That's the importance. So therefore they say that pride can disappear when you look at Krishna's smile. You can be reminded of it, because just with a smile, right, something so innocuous, just with a smile, he can grant liberation, he can grant the highest of benedictions. Every opulence exists in that smile, every beauty. He can attract every being in creation. That should smash it, because none of us could compare in any way, anytime. That's in that smile. Everything is in that smile. And we are literally nothing in comparison. The power of Krishna's smile. So then they're speaking about how they want the shelter at his lotus feet that will save them from all sins, including the sin of pride. Okay. So now we can understand that if this the shelter of Krishna's feet can save them of the sin of pride, then it can save them from other sins like lust, right? Naturally. But yet we have unfortunate commentators who they accuse them of lust. How strange. Because the gopis can be purified of all bad qualities by being in the association of Krishna. This is why the goddess of fortune takes residence at the feet of Krishna, like they're mentioning in this next paragraph. Because she can only be amongst good fortune. She can only be on the transcendental platform. So how can she be in Krishna's presence if he all the time, if he is subject to lust? Or they also mention the Kaliya serpent who was freed from his bad qualities by the touch of Krishna's foot on his head. It's particularly important that they mention the Kaliya serpent, because serpents are so bad, right? They have so many bad qualities that the Srimad Bhagavatam says that even saintly people are happy when they're killed. They're so beyond hope, we could say. So the only way you can deal with them is just kill them. But Krishna is so powerful and so purifying that he was able to purify a snake of its bad qualities. So are we to say that Krishna suddenly loses that purifying ability when he associates with the gopis, and he can't purify them if they have any of these qualities? Or he experiences those qualities in himself? Right? It's a little bit nonsense, right? Krishna is all purifying. He's all pure in all circumstances, and so are his associates, the gopis. Yeah. Even if, for argument's sake, they had those qualities, Krishna's lotus feet can purify them. This is what they're saying. But of course, we've established what they experience is not lust, it's love. But because of their humility, because all good qualities reside in them, they don't see it that way. They see themselves as simple village girls who have this lust, they call it themselves in this paragraph, for this beautiful boy. They want it like this. This is what we don't get. It's by choice. It's not by choice with us, right? We just feel these bad qualities like lust because we're on this material platform. But they just want the simple relationship that we have in this material world, right? Where they're just village girls and he's just a village boy and they're just running after him, lusting after him. Right? This is the simplicity of their love. It's not lust. And so therefore, they're praying here not for this lust to be destroyed, this love, this true love to be destroyed. Just be pacified by coming in our presence. Because this heightened love we're experiencing now, when we're in your presence, it will be pacified. Yeah. That's an indication of the divine nature of this. So then they speak more about Krishna's attractive qualities, right? It's not just his smile, his eyes, his words, everything is so fascinating. Everyone gets attracted to him. And then they praise his words. This is a very nice point to close on. They praise his words and the words about him. And this is a very beautiful verse, the Sanskrit of it, from Srimad Bhagavatam. Tavakatamritang tapta jivanam kavirbhir editam kalmashapaham Shravana mangalam Srimadatam Bhuvi Grinantiye Bhuri Dhajanam. The nectar of your words and the descriptions of your activities are the life and soul of those suffering in this material world. These narrations, transmitted by learned sages, eradicate one's sinful reactions and bestow good fortune upon whoever hears them. These narrations are broadcast all over the world and are filled with spiritual power. Certainly those who spread the message of Godhead are most munificent. Or as Srila Prabhupada says in Krishna book, first-class charitable persons. And this is also confirmed by Rupa Goswami when he called Lord Chaitanya the most munificent. So most munificent or the most charitable. So in this material world, people may not think that the words of Krishna or spreading the words of Krishna are the greatest act of charity. There's so many definitions of what that is because people are trying to do this all the time. But we can understand by looking at the psychology of human beings how this is the greatest charity. As His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj was explaining in a class, that when the psychologists conducted a study, they found that above having the basic necessities of life, right, food, shelter, people cannot be made happy. Once you've given them these basic things, they can't get any more happy until they get more than that. It means to say that what we often believe is that if you give people the basic things in life, they'll be satisfied. They're not. There's something beyond that. And because they're always chasing that, they never have that kind of happiness, no matter how much you give them. So by any unlimited amount of charity that you will do for people, they will always be unhappy. That's the basics, and that's been proven by science. So it means that other things are driving people, and therefore we have so many problems in society, because that deep unhappiness is manifest by problems of the mind, right, and emotions, like psychiatric illnesses, by interpersonal violence, because if you don't get these things that you want, that you think will make you happy over and above your basics, you actually can become violent about it. So many social ills are coming from this deep sense of unhappiness that cannot be fulfilled, that it's actually affecting even those charitable works, because so much of the money and so much of the efforts of people are being spent on these unhappinesses, basically. And Krishna says it in Bhagavad Gita, and he's been saying it from time immemorial because his message is older than 5,000 years. He's repeating it again for Arjuna, but the message he's always been given in Bhagavad Gita is that you can't have happiness if you don't have peace. And this is what he says. So we're chasing happiness, but we really need to have peace. And you can't have peace in this world if it's constantly hankering over something you think will fulfill your emptiness, or you're lamenting over something that you lost that you think could have fulfilled it. So Krishna's words deliver one from this hankering and lamenting, because the words of Krishna are transcendental, above that level. Krishna also describes that, the Brahma Bhuta platform, right, where one neither hankers nor laments for anything. So it's very simple, because his words, everything about him which are transcendental, his holy names, the association of those who are fully saturated in him, the descriptions of his activities, all of this is able to bring us to this Brahma Bhuta platform, the only platform where anyone can really be happy in this world, because the hankering and the lamenting stops. Nobody else is happy, right? Other than someone who has attained it. And it's so difficult to attain. It was only possible to attain through intense yoga, jnana, or Ashtanga yoga. But in this age, you can attain it by Krishna's words and the words about him. This is the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, the most munificent person. That's why he is the most munificent person, and anyone who spreads these words and these names are the most munificent people as well. And this is the conclusion of the gopis. So they speak more about how they miss his beautiful features, and they're meditating on how when he goes out to the village, right, he puts himself through so many inconveniences. He steps barefoot on the ground, right? They're just thinking about him. They're just thinking about all the things that he's going through. Again, not that they are separated from him, even though they're in this separation. So it's such an interesting dichotomy. And so they conclude by seeking him, that's all they want, nothing else. Right? And they pray that he will relieve their distress by giving them his wonderful vision. Okay, so thank you so much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki. Are there any questions or comments? Anything I can try and clarify, or any corrections? Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.